Well, welcome everybody. Thank you all for joining us for Fallingwater Fireside for our first conversation of the 2024 season. And we have the honor of being with Christopher Little tonight. This program carries on a Kaufman family tradition. The Kaufmans would often invite great thinkers into this space to advance ideas around art, architecture, nature, design. So you're following in the seats, I guess, of Alvar Aalto, Mies van der Rohe, Frida Kahlo, Albert Einstein.
Good
Albert
night.
Einstein.
Good night. I'm out of here.
Kind of every great mover and shaker that you can think of from the modern movement visited the house with the Kaufmans at some point. So you're joining those ranks. Close friends of the Kaufmans were the Spire family, and we're joined by Alex and Sylvia Spire. You remember coming here as a kid with the Kaufmans?
Well, I never knew Edgar or Lillian.
But Edgar Jr., yeah.
I was 8 years old when I came here first.
Wonderful. And I want to thank you, Alex, for helping to support tonight's program.
You're welcome.
But we're honored to have Christopher. Christopher Little. I need to look at your bio here, Christopher. Over Christopher's long career as a freelance photographer, you contributed to People, Life, in the New York Times as a freelancer.
Time.
In Time.
Lot.
Your work is in Architectural Digest, GQ, Elle, Vanity Fair, Newsweek. List goes on
Nice.
and on. But you visited 80 countries doing your career.
82.
82 countries.
I once sat next, I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you, but I
you're
sat
not at
next
all.
to a wife of a Danish ambassador. I'm half Danish, and she said, oh, you were a photographer, you must have traveled a lot. And I said, yeah, I have. I've been to 82 countries. And she nodded and was very polite. And I said, thinking it would follow up, I said, how many have you been to? She said, 112. So I was put in my place.
Yes, you were. But you have a long list of impressive people in your portfolio, from movie stars to political figures to royalty to presidents. But at the top of that list of subjects, Fallingwater.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Christopher did the photography for both of our major publications, Edgar Kaufman Jr.'s 1989 Fallingwater, A Frank Lloyd Wright Country House, as well as our 75th anniversary Rizzoli publication, Fallingwater. So Christopher, we're honored to have you here tonight and look forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you.
And I'll turn it over to you because I know you have some comments you'd like to make before we dive
I
into questions.
am, start off by saying I'm officially a has-been. I'm just here, so delighted to be back after so long. I feel like I know this place so intimately. I had the flight from hell from Charlotte to Pittsburgh, which was delayed for 4 hours, and Justin, my buddy, waited for me at the airport, and I got to bed at 2. I'm too old for that. And I can't remember where I was going.
That was this morning or
Yeah, 2 this morning.
No, that was
last night into this
yeah,
morning.
last night. Anyway, I was on my trip, and I thought back to this balmy summer evening when I was here, and I was sitting on Mrs. Kaufman's porch, had my camera set up. We'll talk a little bit about how I did stuff. Are any of you photographers? Yep.
with our phone.
That's right. We'll talk about that too. And I was sitting there, and I have my camera set up, and so I'm waiting for the interior lights and the ambient light to balance. And sometimes you have to wait. I was talking to Alan, who's doing the video here and stuff, and the people, or no, I was talking to Clinton. Sorry, people come and they have half a day to be here, and they're just racing around and stuff. Well, I had the luxury of coming in 4 seasons and really taking my time. Anyway, so I'm sitting on Mrs. Kaufman's porch. Camera's all set up, everything's ready. Sitting in one of the museum piece chaises, having a little whiskey from my flask to tide me over and keep the mosquitoes away. And I started fantasizing. And I started to believe it was my house. And I was just here.
All of
and
us
I
that
lived
work here do the same thing. once in a
Yeah,
while,
I
so.
do. It was so amazing. So anyway, welcome to my house. Glad you're here. I have very short, it's not going to be agony, but I put some pictures together mostly to try to explain in technical terms, but in easily understood, I hope, technical terms about some of the techniques I used, which I hope would be interesting to people. But I show examples, so it's not really screwy off. So, let me begin. Oops. How are we doing? Yeah. I'm going to stand. If that's right.
Yeah, of course.
I'll come up back here. I'm going to read a little bit, and then we'll just talk. And feel free, absolutely, loose is good. Interrupt, questions, if you want to wait till afterwards, whatever. If you have any jokes to make, I really appreciate that. We'll get started. So how to unlock the mysteries of falling water? How to translate Frank Lloyd Wright, the master of complex three-dimensionality, to the two-dimensional page. How to show the house as visitors experience it, or as the architectural scholar Joseph Connors once wrote, how to draw attention to the brilliant and beautiful eclecticism of the falling water design, this slightly shocking way in which elements from different visual worlds are combined. I don't think I need this anymore. So this is I'm going to get to the technique of how you take this picture a little later, but so I want it. The eye has a way greater contrast range than either film or digital. It can see into deep shadows and at the same time see highlights and get detail from them. And so I try to do the same thing. So I let the outside go light, but so if you balance the two, it's fake. And then try to capture the sun streaming in. But at the same time, if you look under the desk, we've managed to maintain the shadow detail, which is very important in a house as shadowy as this one. And you can imagine, we'll get to that, shooting this room is a bear. I have to say, the only thing I don't like about falling water is that I have to pee the whole time. Do you? Anyway,
It's the falling water.
it's the falling.
Sorry.
So this is how I started. This is called a view camera, and it produces absolutely gorgeous 4x5 transparencies or negatives. You can see here it has a rising front. So if you're looking up at a building, instead of pointing the camera up so that the lines converge, you can lift the lens plane and the film plane. Film plane's right above my finger, and the lens plane is where the lens is. And if you keep them in parallel, all the lines stay straight, which for Edgar Kaufman Jr. was a giant bugaboo. He said to me, "Don't give me aircraft carrier pictures." Hated the pictures from down below where the house looks like an aircraft carrier. Anyway, this is a clunky beast to work with, and it takes hours to set up, and it involves significant lighting. I did a picture of this room, which took me 6 hours to hide the lights, so I could take one picture. I mean, it's just was a nightmare.
When did you photograph this?
I'm sorry?
When did you photograph this?
This was 40 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. but nothing's changed. It's so great. You know,
That's the great thing.
Clinton keeps using my photos. Nothing just, it doesn't matter.
The only thing that changed is us.
Yes, and me. I'm having clicker envy. So in the digital age, which I fully embrace, a lot of technical things happened. And one of them was called the perspective control lens. So you saw in the last picture how the rising front of the lens can correct for distortion in the image. This, on the circle, I've cranked the lens up and it accomplishes, not to the same extent, but it accomplishes the same effect. So you don't have those Edgar's aircraft carrier pictures. But it can also do many other things. Well, this is a friend of mine's thing. So watch carefully. This is looking up with that lens in exactly the same position with the perspective controlled. I'll show you that again because it's so cool.
Oh.
Isn't that amazing?
Uh-huh.
And it's real. It's what the eye sees. You know, you're not seeing buildings going like this. You compensate for it. And the other advantage of this picture didn't make the book. I was really discouraged. This is, you know, you can do these detail shots that take 30 seconds. With a 4x5, it would take an hour. And
Christopher,
then
I don't
birds
think
would be
that
gone.
bird's still around though, for 4 years.
I think so. You know, just little details here and there.
So
Kind of looking a little ratty there.
That's the entranceway.
Yeah.
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 And the tree kind of grew through.
Yeah, it's not there anymore.
Oh,
They replaced it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
this was what I think it was Franklin Token. He said that the windows dematerialize. I love that when they open, and it was really fun. I would be outside and during days when it was open, and I'm sorry, is my back to you the whole time? Little kids would come, and when they see that, they would just ooh and ah. It's so much fun to see.
Amazing.
Having clicker issues. Nope. So, in the early days of my my first visit here, I took this picture from the bridge, and in those days, I had to send my transparencies to New York to be processed. So I had no idea what I was getting, and the only thing I could rely on was a Polaroid. You can slip a Polaroid back into the film holder and at least see how if you screwed stuff up. Like, so I was looking at this Polaroid and I say, "Oh my God, this is right when I started." Said the camera's out of alignment, and you all know why. And I shipped it back to New York. I was in a panic. And I shipped it back to New York at an enormous personal expense, FedEx. And he called me back. He said, "Nope, everything's fine. What's your problem?" And then somebody told me about the deflection, which you can really see there. So another way to use the perspective control lens is instead of vertically, you can use it horizontally. So if you take this picture with a wide-angle lens, it'll make this room completely cavernous. You know, it'll look completely unrealistic. There'll be a mile of floor, and way over there will be some tiny windows. And there's nothing you can do about it to cover it. So what I came up with was this idea. I would take 3 pictures, and I would shift the lens to the left and take that first picture, have it in the middle, take the second, and have it on the right to take the third. And I also used a technique which I'm going to describe, which is really magic, which is called HDR, which stands for high dynamic range. So these 3 pictures and 7 images for each one. So the resulting image is, hello, 21 images.
Wow.
And, you know, it looks as to the best of my ability, you know, if in daytime, what you'd see in here. So it's a pretty cool technique. Okay, so I'm going to explain HDR. Don't worry, it's easy to understand. Very difficult to do. You have to be very clever. So this is a so-called normal image. This is what film or digital can do. So the outside is too bright, the shadows are too dark, there's too much contrast, and you don't have the sense that you have when you're in the room. So the first thing you do is camera on a firm tripod, the camera can't move at all. You underexpose the image. See, I'm getting Buddha in now better. And then, grossly underexpose, which is getting all the highlight detail. You can see now the snow and the trees. And then I overexpose to get my shadow detail in the furniture, and grossly overexpose.
Sunny day?
And then, so this was the original image, and then using HDR it becomes this.
Wow.
Beautiful.
It's really amazing, isn't it cool? I mean, it's the best thing I ever learned.
How do you do that exactly? Is that like 3 images placed on top of each other? Or
7.
7?
Yeah, you do it in Photoshop, and you blend them. You put them into 7 layers.
So that's all computer
Yeah.
generated. So but you wouldn't be able to do that before computers?
No, no, you can't do it with film, or at least if you can, I don't know how. I mean, I suppose you could scan the film and do it, but yeah, it's definitely a computer thing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, people, Photoshop is this bad reputation, but it's an amazing tool if you're not trying to be dishonest about it. They've introduced AI, and I was taking a picture of our local library the other day, and there was a really ugly sign for one of those lawn signs for an art exhibit. And I said to myself, am I going to go across the street and remove that and hide it and then bring it back, or am I going to, in Photoshop, and just with this AI generation, you just outline it, and it was against the stones and the grass. It's just unbelievable what it does. And I don't think that's cheating.
No, because that's what you see.
Right, because it's what the eye sees.
Yeah.
This is a good example of how you can control, it's sort of similar to the early one I showed, the HDR. So, you still get the sense of the sunlight flooding the room, but you're not getting giant black areas. So people say, am I at the right spot? How, do you need fancy cameras and PC lenses and all the rest to do it? And the answer is, you really don't. You can take that exact same picture on an iPhone, and it might even be better. I guarantee you that I'm a photojournalist by trade, in 2 or 3 years there'll be a Pulitzer Prize for spot news photography, and it'll be taken by an iPhone. It's just inevitable. Only thing you can't do, which I had the privilege of doing, is we need new batteries, I think. Hello. Oh, I'm sorry. This is again that same technique of using the 3 images, so it's not distorted. I was up in the bramble bushes taking this picture. This is what you can't do. You can't light. And fortunately, I had a very junior member of the staff as my assistant. That would be Justin Gunther, because this is many years ago, who helped me out. And I can't remember if we had walkie-talkies.
Yeah, I think we had walkie-talkies.
And I'd say, okay, and I was on the Outlook, and they'd say, okay, move that light, and do this and stuff. And it's just a great effect.
The water is fabulous. A lot of water. Usually it's not that much.
That was the cover of the second book. I don't know, Edgar might not have liked that.
Yeah.
Bit aircraft carrier.
Aircraft carrier.
He gets it. And then I'm just going to close with this. We were talking about drones today and stuff, and these are the days where you had to charter a little plane and fly over it. So.
I've never seen a picture.
Do you do any drone?
I do. My wife is in real estate, which is why I live such a life of luxury. And I do some shots for her. I was talking to Al about it. It's overused. I mean, you got to be really careful with it. But who was telling me? It was Clinton about the, I mean, so many drone shots you see are just pictures of houses' roofs, but you can bring a drone up to the level of, and just get shots that you just can't get anywhere else. I mean, it's really stunning.
That was
Anyway, that's my
but-
presentation. I welcome complaints, criticisms, and general applause.
Definitely applause.
I don't know.
I have a question. So, I did my due diligence and reviewed your work, which I was already familiar with. And historically, most of your work was with people.
Yeah.
And so you had this connection with this live, emotive
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
What was the when you came here to photograph a static building except for the waterfall? How did you approach that? Because that's a very different
Yeah.
challenge for you.
I found it incredibly relaxing. Yeah.
Buildings don't talk back?
It doesn't move.
movie stars bitch at you, and buildings don't. They're just nice, and here I am. Do what you can.
But did you find that you developed a relationship with the building and?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mean to sound. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I cannot tell you. I never got to work without seeing something new, something I hadn't shot, something I wanted to shoot. And I was here for a week at least in all 4 seasons, so 4 weeks. It's a lot of time, and I had to, Wednesday was the closed day, is it still? And I had to concentrate my shooting, when there weren't people around. But we did have, if I was shooting in a bedroom, they'd close it off, and then the tour guides would come and go through this. We used to get laughing so hard because each spiel would be completely different. All the facts were. I'm sorry, it's our trade secret. I mean, it was really comical. It was really fun. Anyway,
Christopher?
no, those are really good questions.
Yeah.
You can be so much more philosophical shooting something. If you're, have 12 minutes in the Oval Office, there's not much time to do much more than. The other thing about digital, which I just wish I'd had, I used to be terrified. I mean, I photographed, as you know, many presidents, and private time of the president is worth its weight in gold, and I don't know what I have. And I would fly back to New York, and I'd stop from LaGuardia on the shuttle, and I'd go to the Time Life building and get my film processed. Then I'd set my alarm for 3 a.m., and I'd take the subway up to the Time and Life building and look at a test and see if I hadn't screwed it up. And your part was like, because there's no reshoots. Here, if you screw it up, you can come back and do it again.
If it doesn't fall down.
If it does. Isn't that funny about the deflection? Nobody mentioned it. I was panicked.
It was 8 inches,
Yeah,
right?
8 inches.
yeah. Well, clearly visible.
The deflection in this corner was 8 inches. And it's now only 7 and 7.
7 and 7/8. Christopher, this is one of the most photographed houses, works of architecture. Were you at all intimidated by the subject
Well,
matter?
totally, and particularly because Edgar was such a rough boss. The first book, I got to tell a mean story about Edgar.
That's fine.
Hope you don't mind.
Yes.
He made, this is, I think, called hybrid publishing. He paid for a lot of the book, but it was published by a great publishing house called Abbeville, who'd done a lot, and I had done 2 books with them previously on architecture. And so Edgar had hired a friend to do it, and the friend had taken really nice exterior photos, but had no ability to deal with the inside. And so reluctantly, the publisher recommended me to do it, and we met. And then he yelled at me about things he didn't like and stuff. And then we flew down here and took a tour, and he told me all the things he didn't like. And then my deal with him was to take the transparencies, and they're pretty big, to his apartment and to view them. If I'd been a little older, you'll know why I'm saying this, I would have bought him a light box out of my own money. So Edgar, he had I don't know, we didn't have the kind of relationship where I knew what his nerve problem was, but he had a tremor. And this is no insult to anybody whose illness, it's just a story of fact. And Edgar would hold the transparency up to the window overlooking Central Park and say, "I hate it. I hate it." I mean, seriously, just all through. I was like blown away. I had no idea what to do. So I tattletaled. I went to the publisher. I said, "I don't know what to do. The guy hates what I'm doing." And so they had a conference with Edgar. And he said, "You know what, Mr. Kaufman, we really like these pictures." Anyway, he had a very fancy publication party at the Avery Library in New York, the architectural library. And he sat me at his table, and he came over halfway through the dinner and said, "You know, your pictures weren't that bad after all." Okay.
Christopher, do you mind going back in your life a little bit and telling us how you fell into this career?
Oh, childhood hobby for sure.
Yeah.
My father was a journalist, and I just had this dream of being a photojournalist since I was a little boy. And I had an after-school job. I went to a very fancy private boys' school in New York, and I can tell you I was the only kid with an after-school job. And my job was to deliver books for the Carlisle bookshop and to walk Jojo, a very smelly, obstinate dachshund, until Miss Crystal said he had done his duty. So I would I would always bring my camera, and I made friends at 67th Street at the police precinct and the firehouse. And I'd go up and hang with these guys, and if there was something nearby, they'd tell me about it. I begged them to let me go with them, but they said they used Jojo as the excuse not to carry me along. And then I would run, and so I have pictures from my childhood of fights and drunks on the ground and stuff and medical emergencies. I was really into it. Anyway, lo, these many years later, I've written a brilliant book with 400 pictures, and nobody wants to publish it. I'm so devastated.
These are your early pictures.
No, these are my photojournalism career.
Oh, okay.
No Fallingwater. And and they all had the same answer: love the book, too expensive. So I think my world of books is, and like with the Kaufman book, which was subsidized by Edgar, that's what people are asking for now. One of the publishers who wanted to publish it wanted me to kick in to pay for it. And it's very discouraging. I mean, 10 years ago, that book would have sold in seconds. I mean, it really is different. So, woe is me. Woe is me. But anyway, so I got started I was lucky enough to go to Yale between 1967 and 71. And the campus was afire, as we all remember. And I started covering stuff, and I had a motorcycle, and I'd drive my motorcycle to New York and take my film to Newsweek at that point, and they would process it for free, and if they bought one, they bought one. And they paid me like $75, which actually was real money. And and then when I graduated, I started on a contract at Time Life, and I worked at Time Magazine for quite a long time. And when People started, when it was still an incredibly fun magazine to work for, and incredible access, I started working for them. And I also did work for Latter Day Life, when it became a monthly and stuff. And now I quit.
What celebrity gave you the most problems?
Well, quite a few. But surprisingly, people were incredibly nice. For them, I'll tell you a story. But I can remember, this is not in answer to your question, but I'm just going to tell the story because I was thinking about it the other day because we've been getting so much press. So Jerry Seinfeld came to the studio, and Jerry, he was doing stand-up comedy around New York, and he was really friendly, really affable, and he kept making these, I thought, really forced kind of lame jokes, like sort of constantly, like he couldn't stop himself. And we were all, my assistant and I were sort of rolling our eyes and stuff. And then he said, after we finished shooting, he said, I have really big news. I've developed a show with Larry David. It's going to be called the Seinfeld Chronicles. And I said, what's it about? And he said, nothing really. And in my mind, I said, good luck with that, Jerry. So, proven wrong.
So Christopher, how did you get people to open up to you and capture intimate
Natural charm.
natural charm?
No, I had the gift of the gab in the sense that when I'm shooting, I never look at my, everything was automatic. So I would chat the whole time I was shooting. I'd never stop to change my f-stop. And that really makes the difference. I mean, celebrities, they're tricky. They're like little kids. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter, and well, she's getting a little old for this now, but so you meet a little kid and you say you come on too strong, and they just, they're gone. They're back to where. And it's the same with movie stars, except there's an exception, and that is that after you've established your rapport, you don't then praise them about what a brilliant actress they are. Then they're equally mad at you. I mean, it really is like dealing with kids. I mean, that sounds really jerky, but it's true. But I would have to say the vast majority of people are really generous with their time. It's kind of intimate. You're sort of invading their lives. You're at their house. You're, I don't know. I loved it. I loved it.
Could you talk a little bit about the photo shoot you did with the supermodels in New York? Because
that was
I'm
fun.
looking at those photos, they seem genuinely like they were having a great
Oh, they were having a ball. It's hard to describe. This was a people story. It was a perfect people story. So they decided they would take, I don't know if these names mean anything to you, Naomi Campbell, Linda Evangelista, and Christy Turlington out for dinner and then a romp around the town. So they hired a limo and we went to this restaurant and they were putting on such a show. I mean, it was in heaven. They were just screwing around, pulling each other's blouses down and just, being naughty. And the entire restaurant just turned around to watch. I mean, they just turned their chairs and stopped eating and just watched this show. And then we went down to the meat market where there were, let's say, denizens of the night who were decked out in different outfits. And they posed with them. It was hysterical. They were just having a ball. And the final shot was the three of them on top of the limousine, which actually got dented in the process. And that story ran in 36 countries. It was, people just liked it. I mean, it was, and you just, I mean, they were goofing, but they're really good at goofing, and they're really beautiful. I like doing that one.
Any particular subject or time that you experienced in your career that changed your direction, your art, your way of thinking about how you shoot? You can say Fallingwater.
I had a strange relationship with a man who's called the Aga Khan. Does anybody know who the Aga Khan is? And I worked for him for 3 years. And I signed a non-disclosure agreement, so he's not in my book, which is really too bad because I actually admire his good works around the world. He's done universities, hospitals all over the Muslim world. He's an extraordinary guy. But I traveled with him for 3 years, the last year of which was his silver jubilee. And we had the old Grumman jet, and we've went around the world 9 times in that year. And then the point of this story is when I got home, everybody had forgotten me. Right when I was starting to get worried that my freelance career had gone up in smoke because I wasn't there, I persuaded him to do a piece for Life magazine. And he was really reluctant to do it, and I nagged at him. He said, okay, I'll do it. And he was so angry with the piece. It had headlines like, there was pictures of his children in their mosque at home, their home mosque. And the headline was, the family that prays together stays together. It was just like, and there were all these errors, and they sent this junior reporter who'd never, I don't think had ever been to London yet, let alone Karachi, and she identified that he had grown up in Kenya, and his lawyers were all over Life. There was lawsuits, and they had this big meeting in the office, and she said, what about just the first mistake on the first paragraph, Kenya and Canada? And she said, the guy had a funny accent. I couldn't really understand him. Anyway, she got the heave-ho. Anyway, so the point of the story was it didn't change. It just, for the first time in my life, I had the prospect that it was all over, and I totally freaked out. Because the freelance world, I don't know if any of you have done it, you just never know. I mean, you're as good as your last assignment, and you can get a call the next day, or it could be a month. You have no idea.
Is there any particular work you're keen to do going forward?
Walk Ruby, my dog, and no, I'm pretty much done. I'm doing a couple of local books. I'm on the board of the library, and I'm doing a book for them and stuff like that. No, I really quit.
Do you take a lot of pictures of your dog?
No, but I do still take a lot of pictures. No, I don't. She's very uncooperative.
What is she?
Hmm?
What is she?
She is, I told my friends here, she is the perfect dog. She's a rescue from Tennessee. She does have psychiatric problems, which include no stairs, no car, no thunder, and her desire to kill every porcupine. And she loses every battle, and we've spent thousands of dollars on general anesthesia. So now she's permanently on a leash.
What breed is she?
Ruby, I got pet DNA for Christmas, and Ruby is part pit bull. She's really strong, part terrier, hence the hunting, I think, and part border collie, of all things. And she's the sweetest dog that ever lived. She'd climb into your lap right now. No, Ruby's pretty sweet.
Do you know that Lillian Kaufman was one of the first breeders of long-haired dachshunds in the United States?
No.
That's what I have.
Oh, no kidding.
And probably because
No.
of that.
The sweetest dog ever.
Oh, so sweet.
He wants to lie in my arms, and then he closes his eyes.
Yeah.
He loves me.
But he hates chipmunks and squirrels in our ranch.
Well, yeah. Yeah, Ruby, before she got leashed, she's nailed squirrels on the fly. She's fast. Well, I don't know
What
what.
do you shoot with now, Christopher?
I was talking to Al about it. I use this a Canon. It's a digital Canon. It's called an R, and it's the first mirrorless camera, and it's a wonderful design. It's smaller. It can do amazing things. It's getting a little obsolete, and it's also having episodic failures that aren't like one thing. So I'm a little freaked about it. So I think I'm going to have to buy another one. It's only 6 years old. It seems sort of unfair, but and I love it. And well, I didn't do this with it, but I did it with an earlier Canon. I shot Nikon in school and Leicas and Hasselblad for magazine covers, and I never thought I'd leave the Nikon, but when I went digital after I'd retired, Canon seemed to have a better product, but I don't know, these guys use this Lumix, which people adore. Yeah, people adore that. So, yeah, I'm not, in spite of all my HDR stuff, I'm not a big technophile. I don't, as long as it works and I know where all the dials are without looking, I'm ready to shoot.
When you shot here, did you use natural light or did you use lights to highlight things?
When I did it with 4x5, I used artificial light, strobes. And that was why everything took so long. And then I only had that Polaroid to rely on for, you know, can you see the light bleeding out here or there? And then with digital, I used that HDR technique, and I brought lights for interiors from outside, but that's about all we use them for.
So it must have been much easier
Oh,
not having to set everything up.
oh, it was so, and I shot many more pictures, you know, which, I mean, people say, well, if you're shooting no pictures, you're going to get a good one. But it allowed stuff to get tossed that should have gotten tossed because there was something better. And sometimes I'd do the same picture again 4 times on different light and different days. Stuff, and then you could look at them and say, well, this one works better. I feel like I'm sounding a little pompous. Is that coming across? 'Cause I
No,
don't
no,
think
not at all.
Do you have a typical process where you're looking at the images they've taken of how you decide which ones you really like or which ones you think tell the best story?
My wife thinks she's better at that than I am, editing. Editing is it's really important. Editing is, and especially if you're writing a book, you haven't even started after your first draft. But I don't know. I mean, I sort of seat of the pants. I've learned to do it on the screen. For a while, I really needed to see prints, and now I can do it on the screen. And, we went to, I got sick on our trip, and I got dengue fever.
Oh, gee.
Don't get dengue fever. As my friend Michael Selleck used to be at Simon & Schuster said, that's just in the movies. And they came back, besides a horrible disease, which you can't do anything about, I came back with this brain fog, which I still have, and my wife has it too. And
I
was,
have it too, but I didn't have
it's not. And I was using Photoshop, which I've used since its first incarnation, I don't know how many years ago. And shortcuts that I have used 100,000 times, I had to Google. It was the freakiest experience. So, I don't know, we may be together. I don't know.
Christopher, this is an arts education question.
Okay.
So a lot of fine art programs are switching
Mhm.
away from darkroom and actual film, and it's become all digital.
Yeah.
Maybe photography is just an art form that's going to be subject to changes in technology. But what do you think about kind of losing the foundations of?
Well, I think it's a tragedy.
form.
I mean, that's how you learn to expose film. Is film, and you do use the same knowledge to expose digital, and people don't think about exposure anymore. It's, you know.
It's like architecture. No one uses a pencil and
Yeah,
paper and
yeah,
a drafting
yeah.
table anymore.
And you can, I think you can tell sometimes.
Yeah.
I certainly know a particular architect I'm thinking of. I don't, you know, I mean, the days are gone. I can remember being 10 years old and seeing the print appear in the developer. I mean, whoa, glory be. I mean, it was such a miracle. And it was so exciting. I don't miss it, but I feel sort of like everybody should learn that
Yeah.
first. Because you know, and auto exposure is, it's what it sounds like. It's not right. You know, you have to un-auto it to get what you want. You guys must be thirsty. Are you,
we're fine. Any other questions
yeah.
from the audience?
Yeah.
So to go back to when you said there was, the fear that your freelance career
Yeah.
was like on the edge.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure there was probably several times in your career where you felt
Yeah.
that way. I mean, I know I feel like that
Yeah.
sometimes in my career.
Yeah.
And I was just wondering, during those downtimes, what did you do to just stay creative and kind of just stay positive and like
Panicked.
and just
I did nothing. I'm not a big enough person to do. I was just like completely freaked
did
out.
you use your camera at all to
No.
like go out and photograph anything?
No.
You just tore it up.
I wish you'd been my therapist then. I would have done that in a flash. No, I didn't. And now that you say that, it's how stupid. I should have started a project of my own. Mostly I was haunting the corridors of the magazines I worked for. Not begging, but pretty much. Yes, sir.
Did you develop any new techniques in photographing this house from the 2 times that you did it?
Well, I had never used the HDR before, and I'd only used the perspective control lenses to control this thing. So then I discovered, I don't know if I discovered them, probably hundreds of people do the same thing, but the other uses for it, which were so powerful. But I mean, even well, it's hard here with all the people here, but if you take an iPhone with its super wide lens and you stand over there and you do this, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It's really distorted, and plus you get barrel distortion where the ceiling line goes in an arc, and so that was kind of magic. But I had no control over that kind of stuff with the view camera, with 4x5. And you know what's really funny? The Rizzoli, who published the second book, was horrified that I'd shot it on 35 when I first met with the guy who was assigned to art direct it. And if you're ever next time you're in the bookstore, in the gift shop, take a look at like a picture which shows the ceiling here in one book and the other, and it might also be because the reproduction got so much better in the intervening years. But there's so much more detail in the, what's it called, stucco, stucco, than in the book shot on 4x5, which is, and it might have been the scanning that they did of the transparencies. It might have been, well, I hope this hasn't been too photocentric, but maybe that's why you came.
Is there somebody that you wanted to photograph that you never quite had the opportunity?
Well, I hope I'm going to step on politics, but I never photographed Barack Obama. I never met him, and I would have loved to have had a chance, because I was sort of done when he got to be president. And, I have photographed Mr. Trump a number of times, as everybody who ever worked in New York has. And yes, they're hard to avoid. Yeah, he comes to mind. I just feel so lucky. I mean, I met the most incredible people. And
I have a selfish question.
Yeah.
Will you talk about Johnny Cash?
Oh yeah, Johnny Cash. Love Johnny Cash. So Johnny was getting a little older and was a little more enfeebled, not mentally, but physically getting around. And I went down to Hendersonville, Tennessee, where he has his property. He and Rose Cash, what's her? June Carter Cash, thank you. So perfect. It'd be like the Kaufmans doing it. So they took this room in their house and put a giant bed in it. That's their bedroom. So there's no living room, it's just the bedroom. And he couldn't have been nicer, and he was saying, listen, I'm going to take you to this cabin, my secret cabin in the woods. And I said, that sounds just my cup of tea. And we went to the cabin. He said, I do most of my writing here. And he came out with a guitar, and he sat on the steps, and he said, what do you want to hear? And I rather lamely said Ring of Fire, which I was sort of embarrassed about, and he kind of rolled his eyes. But he played it anyway. It was just this incredible scene out in the middle of the woods, me and him, and it couldn't have been more fun. And then we went fishing and did stuff you do for photos. And quite a while later, I went to a concert, not photographing, but I met Roseanne Cash, his daughter, who I love her music. And I told her the story of the cabin. And at first she was like, you know, when you go up to somebody after a concert, they don't want to hear your Johnny Cash story and stuff. And she went, oh my God, he never, ever took me there. I never, ever got there. And I went, oh my God. And so she said, will you send me a print or some prints? And I said, of course I would. So I did. And she called me and she said, I burst into tears when I saw that picture. You were so lucky. You don't know how lucky you are. So that was pretty cool. Johnny Cash.
I have a question. I'm sorry if I should be aware of this, but I'm not. When you were working with Edgar Jr., did you photograph him?
No, I didn't. That's a really good point. I never, you know what, I don't think I even thought of it. Wow, that's kind of a real omission. I photographed Justin when I was here. He's very handsome. But I never did, and why didn't I ever think about that? I should have set something up.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was stupid. I once, I love name dropping. I was once in Katharine Hepburn's bedroom, and
Oh, that's a conversation starter.
and she said, I know you're interested in photography. I want to show you the most amazing 3 photos that I've ever seen in my life.
3 photos.
3 photos.
Oh, 3 photos. Not
And
3 photos.
so she lived on the shore of Long Island Sound, not tree. And it was during the hurricane of 38, the great hurricane of 38, where part of, well anyway, so there's a picture of her house, her family's house, and then the next picture is, it's like this,
Wow.
and the third picture is there's nothing there.
Wow.
And it was so intense to see, and you reminded me because I never asked who took the picture. Because she didn't claim to have taken it. So somebody in her family must have or something, but quite bravely, I think. Anybody other bedrooms you want to go into?
Do you have a favorite photo from what you've done in Fallingwater?
Oh,
All of the ones?
no. I
They're all
don't.
great.
No, there are some that are worse than others. But no, I really don't, nothing.
Was there a space you particularly liked to be in as you were photographing?
Well, a lot of the spaces are really hard to photograph in
Yeah.
because of the size and stuff. I always felt sort of bad for Edgar Jr. out there in the hallway. But I think in a way I preferred fooling with the exteriors here. I mean, there's just so much. It's so magic. And I went out to that
Look at it.
100 times, you know, schlepping the... You guys have lightweight tripods. I had a thing with weighed a ton. It used to be a lot fitter than... I'm sorry.
Did you have a favorite season?
Well, fall's pretty tough to beat here. I mean, with the color of the house and... but I like some of the winter shots a lot. I mean, it was great. It's, you know, yeah, the only problem is peeing. That's it.
Is there a favorite time of day?
Oh, well, I'm a big golden light guy.
Yeah.
Kept me away from my whiskey too long. We'd spend hours just waiting for the light. And,
You were commenting on the color earlier too, and how
Yeah.
much this color just changes so much depending on the season
Yeah.
or the light.
even in the books, you can see it.
Yeah.
the light, the house looks like it's different paint in a lot of different pictures, and I didn't try to control that because, I mean, it's, the light balance is correct, but that's the other thing you can do with these digital, and these guys, you can control your light balance. I mean, it's astonishing. And the other thing you can use if you're into, this may be redundant for anybody who works with a camera, but you should always shoot RAW. It's called RAW. I don't even know what it stands for, but it tries to mimic what HDR can do, and I don't know how it works, honestly. But if you have a good camera, try RAW and compare it to a JPEG, and you'll be very surprised at the results. You do have to post-process it. It's very flat when it comes out of the camera. The JPEGs they twiddle with it, so they're contrasty and they look good when you're looking at the screen and stuff. But a RAW doesn't look good unless you put it through their RAW process, and then you have incredible control. But it uses up a lot more memory and, chip space, whatever it's called.
Well, we can continue the conversation when we have hors d'oeuvres, but
Yeah.
I'll close with one more question.
Yes.
And I know your whole archive is now at the Briscoe at University of Texas.
Right.
What was it like letting go of all of that? Not letting go of it, but they're your babies, right?
Yeah, it was very bittersweet.
Yeah.
There's a place you've never heard of it, called the Briscoe Center for American History, and it has the best, I like to think, collection of photojournalists' work. And it's a small group of people. There's 6 Pulitzer Prize winner among us, not me. And they house it at the University of Texas, Austin. And researchers and people, you can get them. I get called, anyway. So I packed it all up, took 3 months with 2 assistants to get it all together, put it into all these boxes. And then this big blue truck arrived and drove out of my driveway.
It's like your kid going to college.
It is, it was worse. It was. Although I wouldn't let my daughter, I only have one child, apply to school in California because they never come back. Yeah. And now we live in the same tiny town in northwest Connecticut. And my 10-year-old granddaughter, who's getting really big, and see them all the time. It's great. It's a great life.
Justin, am I correct that there weren't many pictures of the interior of this house because of flash bulbs and everything?
Yeah, I think the light was so hard.
Yeah. What could you do?
Right.
Early on.
Yeah.
Right.
There are very few pictures that
There
I've
are.
seen.
Yeah.
Very difficult to photograph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's obvious. It's a very difficult house to photograph inside.
Well,
But fun.
Let's keep enjoying the night together, but give
Yeah.
Christopher a round of applause.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Very kind.